You ever walk away from a conversation feeling like you need to take a deep breath, like something just drained the life out of you, but you can't quite put your finger on why? I once had a colleague, smart, charming, always had the right words, the kind of person you want to trust, but every interaction left me feeling off, not in a big obvious way, just small moments, little jabs disguised as jokes, compliments that didn't quite feel like compliments, a strange tension in the air. And yet I kept convincing myself, it's fine, they're just having a bad day, maybe I'm overreacting. But here's the truth. Toxicity isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet erosion of self-trust. And if we don't name it, we let it shrink us. So today I want to talk about 10 subtle signs someone is secretly toxic. The kind of toxicity that doesn't announce itself with a bullhorn, but sneaks in through the cracks. First, they disguise criticism as concern. It starts small. I just want what's best for you, or I'm saying this because I care, but somehow their concern always makes you feel smaller, less capable. Research shows that chronic criticism, especially when masked as care, erodes self-confidence over time. If someone consistently makes you second-guess yourself under the guise of helping, it's not kindness, it's control. And here's where it gets tricky, because we're wired to seek connection, especially with the people we trust. So when someone tells us, I'm just looking out for you, we want to believe them. We want to think they have our best interests at heart. But real care doesn't chip away at your self-worth. It doesn't leave you feeling like you need to shrink, to change, to prove something just to be enough. A toxic person will wrap their criticism in just enough affection to make you question yourself. It won't sound harsh at first. It'll sound reasonable, even thoughtful. I just don't want to see you fail. You know I love you, but I think you're making a mistake. And suddenly you're doubting your own choices. You're wondering if maybe they see something you don't. You're rewriting your instincts to align with their judgment. But here's the thing, real support doesn't feel like a weight pressing down on you. It feels like a safety net, not a leash. It empowers, not diminishes. If someone is constantly making you feel less than under the pretense of caring, it's not about your well-being, it's about control disguised as concern. And the most dangerous part, over time you start internalizing it. You start believing that maybe, just maybe, they're right about you. The real question isn't, do they care? It's, does their care make me feel stronger or smaller? Because genuine love, support, and friendship, they don't ask you to shrink, they make room for you to expand. Second, your boundaries feel like a challenge to them. Healthy people respect limits. Toxic ones test them. Slowly, subtly. Maybe they make you feel guilty for needing space. Here's what I know. The people who love you will honor your boundaries. The ones who want to control you will make you explain them. At first it seems harmless. You say, I can't talk right now, and they keep texting. You set a limit and they joke about how you're being too strict, too sensitive. Maybe they act hurt. Maybe they make you feel like you're doing something wrong by wanting space. And little by little, you start second-guessing yourself. Am I being too rigid? Should I just let it go? Here's the truth. People who genuinely care about you don't need an essay on why you need a boundary. No is a full sentence. I need space should be enough. But toxic people, they see boundaries as a challenge, a puzzle to solve, a rule to bend. Because to them, limits aren't about mutual respect, they're about control. Research shows that one of the hallmarks of emotionally manipulative relationships is boundary erosion. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow, steady dismantling of your ability to say no without guilt. And once someone learns they can push past your limits without consequences, they won't stop. It escalates. And let's be honest, most of us don't want to upset people. We don't want to seem difficult or high maintenance. So we soften our stance, we make exceptions, and before we know it, we're exhausted, resentful, stretched thin, because we're constantly managing someone else's feelings at the cost of our own. Real love, real friendship, real support, they don't ask you to abandon yourself. They don't make you feel selfish for needing space. The right people don't make you fight for your own limits. They respect them simply because you ask them to. Third, you feel drained, not energized after being around them. Ever had a conversation that left you feeling like you just ran a marathon you didn't sign up for? Like you walked in fine but left carrying an invisible weight? That's not just a bad day or a tough interaction. That's a pattern. And when it happens over and over again, it's a sign that something isn't right. Relationships, whether they're friendships, partnerships, or family connections, should, at their core, bring a sense of balance. That doesn't mean every conversation has to be lighthearted or easy. We all go through hard seasons, and sometimes we lean on the people we love. But there's a difference between support and emotional exhaustion, between being present for someone and being used as their emotional dumping ground. Research shows that toxic relationships increase cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone. That means the exhaustion you feel after spending time with someone who drains you, it's not in your head, it's in your nervous system. And if left unchecked, it can lead to anxiety, burnout, and even physical symptoms like headaches and fatigue. And here's the tricky part. These people aren't always obvious. They don't show up waving red flags. Sometimes they're charming, they tell great stories, they pull you in, but somehow the dynamic always tilts in their favor. Their problems become your problems. Their emotions become your responsibility. And when you finally step away, you realize that you never got to share, you never felt heard, you left feeling worse, not better. The right people don't leave you feeling like you need to recharge after every interaction. They don't take up all the air in the room and leave you gasping for breath. The best relationships don't drain you. They pour into you just as much as you pour into them. Fourth, they weaponize your vulnerability. We all crave deep connection, and connection requires vulnerability. But not everyone honors it. A toxic person will encourage you to open up only to use your words against you later. If you've ever shared something personal only to have it thrown back at you in an argument or used to shame you, that's not just unkind, it's dangerous. Vulnerability is the foundation of trust. It's how we build meaningful relationships, how we let people see us, really see us. But in the wrong hands, the things we share in confidence can be twisted into ammunition. Maybe it's a fear you once admitted, now used to keep you small. Maybe it's a past mistake you worked hard to move beyond, suddenly brought up when they need leverage. Or maybe it's a moment of struggle you confided, turned into proof that you're weak, dramatic, or too much. And here's where the shame creeps in. Because when someone betrays our vulnerability, our first instinct is often to blame ourselves. I shouldn't have shared that. I should know better. But let me be clear. Vulnerability isn't the problem. The wrong person is. Real connection isn't about collecting personal details to use later. It's about holding space for each other without judgment, without conditions, without turning intimacy into a weapon. The people who truly care about you, they don't make you regret being open. They make you feel safer because of it. Fifth, their apologies feel hollow or never come at all. A real apology, the kind that rebuilds trust, comes with ownership and change. But a toxic person, they either avoid apologizing altogether or give you an apology so empty it leaves you wondering if you imagined the harm in the first place. Maybe they say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," instead of "I'm sorry for what I did." Maybe they shift the blame. "I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't overreacted." Or maybe they just don't acknowledge it at all. And you find yourself stuck in a loop, questioning whether you were too sensitive, whether you misread the situation, whether asking for accountability was asking for too much. But here's the truth. When someone cares about you, they care about how they make you feel. They don't just say sorry to move on. They say sorry to make things right. And that means more than words. It means changed behavior. It means recognizing the harm caused and making an effort to do better. A toxic person, though, will minimize, deflect, or ignore. They'll leave you holding the emotional weight of the situation, wondering if the pain you felt even mattered. Over time, this chips away at your ability to trust your own feelings. You start accepting less than you deserve because it feels easier than fighting to be heard. But you don't have to beg for basic respect. Real relationships, healthy, mutual, and strong, don't require you to convince someone that your feelings matter. because to the right people, they always do. 6th, they create drama but always play the victim. Ever notice how some people always seem to be at the center of chaos, but somehow it's never their fault? No matter what happens, they're the ones who've been wronged, the ones who deserve sympathy, the ones who need rescuing. And if you're close to them, you might find yourself constantly pulled into their whirlwind, playing the role of fixer, peacemaker, or emotional caretaker. Here's the pattern. Something goes wrong, and instead of taking responsibility, they spin the story so that they're the victim. Maybe they hurt someone, but instead of acknowledging it, they talk about how they were misunderstood. Maybe they started the argument, but somehow it's your fault for not handling it better. And if you try to hold them accountable, you become the villain. Psychologists call this victim mentality. It's a classic tool of manipulation. It keeps the focus on their pain, their struggles, their needs, while completely erasing the harm they may have caused. And if you're not careful, you start questioning yourself. You start thinking, maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have been more understanding. But here's the thing, being a victim of something doesn't give someone a free pass to hurt others. We all go through hardships, but healthy people don't use their struggles as an excuse to avoid accountability. A real relationship, one built on trust, means both people take responsibility when they mess up. And if someone refuses to do that, if they always shift the blame, twist the story, or make you feel guilty for holding them accountable, that's not just drama, that's emotional manipulation. 7th, they give you just enough to keep you hooked. They know exactly when to pull back and when to pull you back in. Just when you start to notice the imbalance, when you begin to question if this relationship is good for you, they do something that makes you stay. A kind word, a thoughtful gesture, a moment that reminds you of why you trusted them in the first place, and suddenly all the red flags fade into the background. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, and it's one of the most powerful forms of emotional conditioning. It's the reason people stay in unhealthy relationships for years, because the highs feel so good that they override the pain of the lows. The unpredictability creates a cycle. You hold on, waiting for the next moment of kindness, the next glimpse of who they could be. But real connection isn't about potential, it's about consistency. And here's the hard truth. Someone who truly values you doesn't make you question where you stand. They don't disappear and reappear based on their needs. They don't breadcrumb you with just enough affection to keep you emotionally invested. They show up fully and steadily, not just when it's convenient for them. If someone's kindness only comes in flashes, if you have to earn their warmth by enduring coldness, it's not real intimacy, it's control. And you deserve more than a relationship that keeps you waiting for scraps of love. 8th, they talk about others in a way that makes you wonder what they say about you. You've probably been there sitting across from someone as they tear into a mutual friend, a coworker, maybe even a family member. And at first, it might seem harmless, just venting, just sharing concerns. But then you start to notice a pattern. The way they speak about others isn't just frustration, it's judgment, criticism, maybe even a little cruelty. And that quiet voice inside you starts to wonder, what do they say about me when I'm not around? The way people speak about others in private is often a reflection of how they operate in relationships. If someone consistently gossips, criticizes, or mocks others behind their backs, it's not a stretch to assume they do the same when you're not in the room. And that does something to trust. It creates a slow, creeping insecurity, not just about them, but about your place in the relationship. And here's what's even more revealing. If they bond with you over gossip, if connection with them feels strongest when you're both talking about someone else, that's not connection. That's a transaction. Real trust isn't built on shared negativity. It's built on honesty, on presence, on knowing that the person sitting across from you will hold your name with the same respect when you're not in the room as they do when you're there. Because the people who truly value you, they protect your name. They don't trade it for momentary entertainment. And if you're left wondering whether someone does the same for you, chances are you already have your answer. 9th, they dismiss your feelings instead of acknowledging them. You share something that's been weighing on you, maybe a frustration, a hurt, a moment where you felt unseen, and instead of listening, instead of holding space for your feelings, they brush it off. You're overreacting. That didn't happen. You're too sensitive. At first, it might seem like a misunderstanding. Maybe they just don't get it. Maybe they didn't mean to be dismissive. So you explain again, hoping they'll hear you this time. But instead of understanding, they double down. They make you feel like the problem, like the issue, isn't what happened. It's that you dared to feel something about it. And little by little, you start questioning yourself. Am I making a big deal out of nothing? Should I just let it go? This is what psychologists call gaslighting. And it's one of the most subtle but damaging forms of emotional manipulation. It makes you doubt your own experiences, your own emotions, your own reality. Over time, it chips away at your confidence, making it harder and harder to trust yourself. But here's the truth. Your feelings are valid because they exist. You don't have to prove them. You don't need permission to feel what you feel. The people who care about you don't dismiss your emotions, they acknowledge them, because in a healthy relationship, feeling heard isn't a privilege, it's a given. 10th, they make you feel like you're never quite good enough. It's subtle, a backhanded compliment, a raised eyebrow when you share something you're excited about, a little joke at your expense that leaves you laughing on the outside but shrinking on the inside. And over time, you start to notice a pattern. You don't feel uplifted around them. You feel diminished. Like no matter what you do, how much you accomplish, or how much you grow, it's never quite enough. Toxic people have a way of keeping others small. Sometimes it's through criticism disguised as advice. I'm just trying to help. Other times it's comparisons. Must be nice to have everything work out for you. And sometimes it's the absence of something you should have. Celebration, encouragement, genuine joy for your success. And here's why it's so dangerous. Over time, it can start to sound like your own voice. That little seed of doubt they planted grows into self-criticism. And before you know it, you're not just hearing you're not enough, you're believing it. But here's the truth. People who truly love and respect you don't make you question your worth. They don't keep you small. They celebrate you. They challenge you in ways that make you better, not in ways that make you feel broken. And if someone in your life makes you feel like you're constantly falling short, it's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. Toxicity doesn't always come in loud, obvious forms. More often, it's quiet, subtle, wrapped in concern, disguised as humor, hidden in the spaces between words. But just because it's subtle doesn't mean it's not real. And just because someone doesn't intend to harm you doesn't mean you have to accept the harm. The truth is, we teach people how to treat us by what we allow, what we reinforce, and what we walk away from. And that's not about being cold or unforgiving. It's about protecting the most valuable thing you have, your peace. You deserve relationships that don't leave you questioning yourself, people who pour into you as much as you pour into them, spaces where your vulnerability isn't weaponized, where your success is celebrated, where your emotions are acknowledged, not dismissed. So if anything in this message resonated with you, if you recognized a pattern, a feeling, a weight you've been carrying, let this be your permission to choose something better, to set the boundary, to walk away if you need to remind yourself over and over again that real love, real friendship, and real connection don't ask you to shrink. They allow you to be. You are worthy of relationships that feel safe, steady, and full of light. And if you haven't found them yet, keep going. They exist. And you deserve nothing less. Good luck. You've got this.